Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining myself, Sophie Parrott, a journalist at HR Grapevine, today for an HR Grapevine and Cross Knowledge webinar titled Digital Learning Maturity, a Map for Impact and How to Get Ready for the Journey. Ascertaining how close you are to L&D goals and where you are in your learning journey against where you want to be are probably common questions that employers in HR are currently asking themselves. And if these are some of the questions that you are thinking about when it comes to digital learning maturity, then you've definitely come to the right place, because these are some of the topics that we are going to discuss in today's webinar. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Cedric Borsey, who is a senior learning strategist at Cross Knowledge, and who has more than 20 years of professional experience in the fields of HR, L&D, comms and PR. So great to be joined by you today, Cedric. Just quickly, a bit of housekeeping. Throughout the duration of the webinar, we do have a question function, so please feel free to put forward any questions that you have for Cedric. We'll try and rattle through some of those at the end. There'll also be a couple of polls to get involved with throughout the duration of the webinar, so please do get involved as and when those come up. But I'm just going to now hand over directly to Cedric to kind of tell us a little bit more about himself and to discuss the topic further.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today for this webinar. So thanks for being there. Digital learning maturity, a map for impact, and how to get ready for the journey. Few words about myself. For the last 7 years at Cross Knowledge, my role has been to advise our clients about the learning solutions and strategies for maximum outcomes. And indeed, the first part of my career I spent in HR and L&D and internal communications for the AXA Group and Hays Recruitment. So that's for me. Today we are going to cover three main topics indeed. Over the next 35-40 minutes, we want to make sure we have enough time to take your questions. So again, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. We're going to start with the why, the why of digital learning maturity for a few minutes. Then we move on to the map for impact that we are going to unfold with you. And then we're going to look at where do we go from there. But also today, for you in exclusivity, I would say I have a very first version of the digital learning barometer that we have put together at Cross Knowledge, and I'm going to share some insights with you on that. So, are you ready for the journey? Let's move on. So, if we start with the why of digital learning maturity, we need to look a bit at the context. Yeah, I have a slide here that I think gives a good overview of the current environment we are in. And yes, most business indicators have been pointing into the same direction for quite a while. Believe it or not, it's already 5 years since World Economic Forum predicted that 65% of our children may end up working in new types of jobs that currently don't exist today. More recently, early 2020, just before the pandemic spread in Europe, the same think tank announced 1 billion people would need to be reskilled by 2030. So job automation, decreasing talent availability, less mobility of the skilled labor, aging population, these are some of the key driving forces, of course, behind the need to upskill and reskill your workforce at speed and at scale. And to quote PwC in one of their CEO report, saying businesses cannot hire their way over this skills gap at the price they can pay. So the imperative is clear. But meanwhile, obstacles are also strong. Because from that same PwC survey, I'm sure some of you know that insight that in 2019, 8 in 9 CEOs would express concern over the lack of skills in their organizations, saying we are not able to innovate effectively. We are struggling to improve the customer experience. We are unable to grab market shares and growth opportunities around. So that same year, IBM Institute for Business Value also published a really good research pointing to the fact that it takes longer today to fill in that skills gap, mainly because of two reasons. One is the nature of the skills on demand, so the behavioral people skills, and two, the life expectancy of skills becoming shorter and shorter. So the last stat here for you today, from that same report in 2020, showing that indeed fewer than 1 in 5 business leaders believe their organization has made significant progress in terms of upskilling and reskilling. So the imperative seems clear for everyone. But we are not there yet. Josh Berzin, in a podcast a few weeks ago, said something like, "We can stop talking about the why of upskilling now. Let's focus on the how." Yeah. And yes, if upskilling and reskilling the workforce has this potential for huge company-wide benefits and the potential to become this competitive advantage, we really need to go and focus on, okay, what can we do about that? Because it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, what you put in, you will get out what you put in. And this is really our starting point here in this approach towards learning, digital learning maturity, is to look at how effective skills building will lead to more positive outcomes for business, of course, but also for society in general. And to look back at the starting point with an intention. The intention to do this investigation, this analysis of where are we, what are our blind spots, what are the opportunities that we can grab now or that we could grab tomorrow. So this raises three fundamental questions for you today. One is your organization ready for skills building at scales, and are you prepared to go and grow this digital learning maturity? Two, how close are you to your L&D goals, and what good looks like to enable that upskilling and reskilling strategy? And three, where are you indeed in your own digital learning maturity against where you would need to be to achieve these goals? Okay. Now, a year ago, exactly a year ago, Fosway published a research, and that was just after the first lockdown in Europe. And in that research, they found out that a majority, 60% nearly, of senior L&D leaders declare that they thought the organization was not mature in terms of digital learning. And the ones with an immature approach indeed declare that they found it more difficult to cope with the consequences, the impact of the crisis. So that was a wake-up call, I would say, to look back at digital learning maturity and say, okay, where are we on that? More recently, in September 2020, at CrossKnowledge, we organized a series of webinars around the topic of digital learning maturity and how to drive value with that. And so we asked the participants a number of questions, and one of them was, how could a maturity model become useful for you as learning professionals? Some of you know this quote from George Box, yeah, all models are wrong, but some are useful. And if they are useful, what are they going to do for you? Well, the answer was quite clear: add clarity to your L&D strategy. Then we asked another question, and we are going to ask you that question in a moment with a poll, is what can digital learning maturity help you achieve? And so I think you're going to see on the screen a poll coming with a number of potential answers, and we're going to ask you to just tick what you would answer.
Yeah, thanks, Cedric. I've just distributed the poll now, so I can see around about 40% of you have voted. So I'm just going to leave that up for a little bit longer to collate the results, and then we'll see what the results find. I guess one thing that would maybe be interesting, is there any of the kind of options on there that you think may come out on top before we kind of reveal what attendees have voted for?
I would prefer to wait until people have answered to answer that question. So
okay, no worries. Well, we're on about 80%.
A few minutes. Yeah. I'm going to do something here.
Okay, so the results of the poll are in, and in first position with 43% is responding and adapting quickly to changing business priorities. In second position, 24% is design better learning. And interestingly, on the other end of the scale, 0% is more usage on our platform. Do you have any kind of insights on some of those results?
Well, the top one was already what attendees answered in that webinar, which is actually still online for people who would like to go back to that webinar. That's a webinar we went back to a number of existing models to then arrive at the moment of this map that we're going to unfold with you today. But yes, indeed, the respond and adapt quickly to business priorities was also the answer of the participants there. So there is consistency, which is good to see.
I'm just going to close the poll now and then hand back over to you.
Excellent. Great. Okay, I see that. I just lost a few screens there, but we can carry on. So thanks for your answer there. And before we move on, let's recap. Yeah, we have a number of goals we want to achieve with digital learning maturity, and one is achieve more impact through corporate learning strategy. Two is how to write your own story as L&D. I find that one really important, is how you're going to drive this value proposition internally across your organization, horizontally or vertically, by using this maturity approach, and how you're going to accelerate, of course, in your transformation at the speed of business. And there is a number 4, which is something we witness with our clients, is that this approach is also a call for a deeper partnership between different stakeholders, internal or external providers, to grow and nourish the relationship for again, for more value and return on investment. And again, before we move on, I would like also to point to what digital learning maturity is not, and it echoes what you have answered in the pool as well. It's not the end goal. It's not a shiny LXP feature on a platform, and it's certainly not a silver bullet to go and solve that skills challenge that I mentioned earlier from the IBM research. There is no silver bullet to do that overnight. Now, if in 2020 you have lifted and shifted a lot of face-to-face training online, if you have curated or created or aggregated content on the platform for remote working, mindfulness, or diversity and inclusion, and if you have then indeed communicated around usage and peaks of usage during lockdowns, you've done the good thing, but not necessarily you have grown digital learning maturity. So what? Okay, now what are you going to ask me? Where do we go from there? Well, there are 6 major L&D trends that we would like to share with you today. That really illustrate how we need to go closer to the business with that approach towards learning maturity. They are here on the screen. I'm not going to read them. Someone in the call the other day mentioned to me, we need to move from transportation to transformation. I did like that analogy as well. And the 2 next slides, I'm going to focus on 2 change of paradigms that I also think are really really important. One is the shift from content to context. Because really, yes, content is king, is still king, but context rules. What I mean by that is we're coming from the traditional training environment, LMS-driven approach or event-driven approach, and we have seen a major shift towards LXP platforms or self-directed learning environment, the Netflix of learning over the last few years, and it's been it's been great to see how that has democratized access, how the experience has largely improved. But the risk there is to indeed have too much content, an abundance of content, and a lack of context. And that's where the concept of capability academies that was shared by Berzin as well, I think a year or year and a half ago, is really promising. I think, because with that we take the best of breed, I would say, and we go and solve problems with capabilities, and that's a big shift when you are able to contextualize not only the content but your learning narrative in general. And the second major shift is this change of posture for L&D itself. This change of posture from the know-it-all teaching approach to knowledge is a process rather than a product approach. So performance consulting really is one key skill that L&D needs to develop to go and again solve the real problems that business leaders have. And for the moment, you can read that in the news every day, is attracting talent, retaining talent, growing talent, reducing time to competence, and of course, mitigating risk, increasing revenues today and tomorrow. So there are all the questions that need to be the starting point for any learning initiative. And then we're going to see what are the different modalities and approach to follow. So big, let's say, shift again in terms of paradigm. So now we have a good, hopefully, you're still with me, and hopefully we've got a good understanding of the territory. And we need a map. We need a map to navigate that territory. Fosway published the 9 Grid report on digital learning a few months ago, and they pointed to the need for things to change and to get more sophisticated in terms of digital learning. They say we are all digital learning providers now. And I say yes, okay, sophistication needed, complication not needed. We are in a enough complicated world. I'm sure you would agree on that. And by the way, talking about the world and the universe, I've got a map there for you, which is the largest three-dimensional map of the universe. And it includes more than 2 million galaxies. It covers 11 billion years of the universe history, which I find fascinating for illustrating indeed how we need now to go back to some more simplified version of what we are doing, and using maps to do that, new maps to address new complexities. Okay, and that's a version of the map we would like to unfold with you today. So we call it the map for impact. I hope you're still with me. We're going to unfold that map now. And we are going to go into 3 different cycles of maturity in that map. The first cycle, we call it access to learning. What we mean by access to learning is a situation where most organizations may have a first experience with digital learning, but it's still very much focused on content, e-learning content, e-learning modules, compliance. Most of the time, L&D will still be in a reactive mode with no consistent or solid performance indicators about the business needs analysis. And also the technological environment is going to most probably be still quite fragmented, which of course has an impact on the experience. But we will notice at that stage a move towards democratization of knowledge and access, and also some movement towards self-directed learning. And that will bring us to the second cycle of maturity. We call it integrated learning experience. And that's when gradually the strategy falls into place and will align with business priorities, and the need analysis is going to become more systematic and more consistent. Also, in terms of content, we're going to see a wider range of formats and ways of creating that content, aggregating or even creating. In terms of topics, we're going to see indeed a wider range of topics, including the behavioral skills, people skills, some call them power skills as well. And that content is going to be contextualized thanks to programmatic approach, thanks to blended approach, where you have the possibility to contextualize and to connect people together as well. So social learning is one big aspect and there too. So in terms of user experience, gradually data and feedback from the learners are going to inform you about how to improve that on a continuous basis, and how you can adopt methods to design that are more iterative as well. And that brings us then to the third cycle of maturity, and we call it effective skills building at scale cycle. So at that stage, we go beyond the pilot stage. We have a corporate learning strategy that is fully integrated now with the business strategy. We have an L&D function which is built around strong governance models with a operating model that really can allow business to be part of the journey. And so not only the learning experience is going to be enriched, but also it's going to be more scalable, and it's going to be deployable, executable at scale with optimized costs. So indeed, L&D is not going to be the cost center anymore, but more of a value creator. And that's when we're going to start talking about learning organization and learning climate as a conducive climate for people development, for everyone. So these are the three cycles of maturity. We're going to ask you now with another poll, actually. Really, at first look, don't overthink it. But at first look, where do you position yourself as an organization on this digital learning and maturity map? Is it one, cycle one, access to learning, two, integrated learning experience, three, effective skills building at scale? So just have a first perception, I would say, of where you are. So we have a bit of a heat map here of you as participants and where you position yourself.
Thanks, Cedric. The poll's just distributing now, and we've had about 70% of attendees voting. So I'll just give it another couple of seconds to get as many votes in as possible, and then we'll share the results.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, so coming out on top with 59% was access to learning. In second position with 35% was integrated learning experience. And then on the other end of the scale with 6% was effective skills building at scale. Is it something that you would say you expected, or is there any kind of other insights you can share around the results of this?
No, I think it's a good reflection of different benchmarks that are there out in our industry. It's also, from what I see and my experience over the last few years, a good reflection of the work we've been doing with clients at CK as well. So thank you for taking that. I think it's good confirmation. It was also a bit of a break. I'm aware that it's a lot of information, and I'm hoping that now you are ready to unfold a bit more of that map with me. Because we are going to look at the 6 dimensions. Okay, so this map is a framework, and the framework is articulated around those 6 dimensions. And in each dimension, we have described and defined a maturity journey with different evidence and point of data that we are looking for to go and assess where we are in that journey. But I'll go very quickly towards the different dimension with you. And we start with that was the poll. We start with the L&D capability. So in that dimension, we're going to ask ourselves questions about the operating model, the governance bodies in place, and the skills that L&D needs to succeed in their challenges. The dimension we call line managers is the one where we look at the involvement of people managers in the learning process, the role of line managers in the learning climate of organizations, and the ability to drive not only performance conversation, but to link those performance conversations with people development aspects. The learners dimension is where we look at the level of ownership that people have about the development, but only how the communication is done. We call it the learner marketing approach to help people reconnect with the what's in it for me, basically, especially in a self-directed environment. Learning experience is really this moment of interaction that people have with a platform, with a system, and there we are going to look at the level of engagement and also the maturity of the learning design in terms of how it's done and how it's measured. The learning architecture is the dimension where we look at how this learning system is integrated in the wider ecosystem of an organization. So we're talking integration, we are talking accessibility as well in terms of mobile strategy or authentication system, etc. And then last but not least, learning analytics is the dimensions where we're going to go and look at how are we going to measure the business contribution learning has in an organization. So with that, we have covered 6 dimensions. So each dimension is going to include a number of indicators, and that's going to be the skills landscape that we are going to look at. And from there, the question now is, where do we go? Where do we go from here to go and shape or reshape, rethink our skills landscape? Well, we have the territory, we have the map, and so the journey is quite clear. Is do the check for yourself. So connect this approach of digital learning maturity to your own context, because each organization is unique, and you would benefit from taking the time, and I know time is scarce, but taking the time to sit down and think, where are we? Because if you understand better where you are in your maturity journey, it will help you define better where you are going to go in terms of creating more impact. So if you really want to build this continuous capability development model and really make a difference and an impact on the business, then knowing where you are today is the first step to take. So what we have for you online, and I think you're going to see in the chat a link posted, is a short version of this assessment, of this check, to give you a first overview of where you are. So it's a series of 12 questions covering those different dimensions that I mentioned. And then straight away, you're going to see for yourself where you are positioned as an organization, or as a part of the organization, or as a geography, or as a business, as part of a bigger entity. And directly you will have access as well to an individualized report. And in that report, you're going to have more insights and comments on per dimension, again, depending on where you position yourself, what good looks like, and how to move to the next cycle of maturity. Because at the end of the day, we really want to bring movement to the situation. So we think this approach not as a static map, but as a more dynamic approach, evidence-based approach, where we're going to follow this reflect, activate, optimize approach to put things into motion indeed. And so we have designed for each of the dimension what we call a toolkit. So you have access to those toolkits as well when you have done the check online. And each toolkit, so one per dimension, is built on the same structure. It's going to be in a very practical approach, asking you, okay, who are you going to gather in terms of people, perspectives, global, local, business, L&D, HR, talent, or even IT. And what are the next questions we are going to take? So we have done 12 questions now, which is a first level, scratching the surface in a way. And how do we get deeper into an analysis? So we have a number of questions there. In the activate part, each toolkit is going to present what good looks like. What do organizations do when they are at a higher level of maturity in that specific dimension? And then the optimize phase is a phase when choices need to be made. Again, in a world of limited resources, we cannot do everything at the same time. We have to focus. And this is where in a dimension, if you choose to focus on a number of things, then the questions are going to be how we're going to do that well and how we're going to measure that. So again, not a simple map, but a dynamic, evidence-based approach to grow your digital learning maturity for more impact. So we are slowly but surely reaching the end of my part, and I'm hoping we have some questions in a moment. But I'm sure also that most participants would like to know what others are doing. How can I compare myself to other organizations? For the moment, this digital learning barometer is, like I mentioned in the intro, is a first beta version, but gradually we are hoping to add more meat to the bones and be able to go more granular in how we treat the data. So the checker was launched 5 weeks ago, I think. And so we have gathered data from the 70-ish organizations that have filled in the check for the moment. And what we see is the following. The dimension with the highest level of maturity is the learner's dimension. And for you to remember, okay, what are the questions we asked there? There were questions about how is it communicated, what's the effort in terms of marketing, and how also the informal learning is taking place, including peer-to-peer and communities of practice. So for me, that was a good surprise to see that there, because I remember 5-6 years ago, the topic of social learning was really a tough nut to crack. So it's good to see that there is improvement there. The second dimension, L&D capability, comes a bit lower, with questions around, again, governance, operating model, and the skills, and how the strategy is devised rather than an annual action plan. So second on the podium, L&D capabilities, and then line managers, which was a bit of a surprise, I must say, for me, because we still hear a lot of stories where the learning culture is still in a underdeveloped stage, maybe, or struggling because of some big barriers coming from the line management. So role of the line managers, facilitating employee performance development and the development of learning climate, Seems to be hope there, and that's good to see. The fourth dimension in terms of maturity in this first benchmark is the learning architecture, with questions about again, accessibility, anytime, anywhere, any device, and how we integrate with the organizational ecosystem. And then learning experience, which I would have expected maybe to be a bit higher, but in this, again, this version, it comes quite low when we ask people about the methods that are used to design learning, and how a more data-driven approach can be taken also to design learning and adapt for a continuous improvement of our offer. And that one was not a surprise. Learning analytics, I think, comes last. There is still a lot of challenges there for the LND function to go beyond the measure of quantitative elements like completion or usage, and to move towards more outcome-driven data and insights. So when we connect the dots, or in this case we connect the lines, that's the landscape we see today with this first digital learning barometer. But again, I'm sure you want to see for yourself. So please do so. Take a few minutes after this this webinar to do that check for yourself. Your journey starts here. Directly, you will get your report shared with you. You will have access to some toolkits, the possibility to book a call with our experts, and then later on, when we have a more detailed benchmark, you will certainly receive a copy of that. And then in the longer run, of course, and as a bit of a wrap up for everything we've been talking about today, is how you're going to improve efficiency in terms of your learning landscape and your learning offer. How you're going to make that scalable, how you're going to make that more aligned with the business priorities, and not only at a global level, but at a local level as well, and how that's going to lead to a more effective skills building program or initiatives or strategy in general, when you can combine more personalized approach and better engagement of your learners. So that's it for me today. I leave you with one quote, which it's my favorite, one of my favorites for the moment. I like a good quote. Don't hesitate to connect on LinkedIn if you want to. You've got my profile there to connect to, and I then hand over back the mic to you, Sophie, for questions from the audience.
Well, thank you, Cedric, for kind of taking us through all of that in the webinar today. As you just mentioned, we do have a little bit of time for questions, so thank you everyone for sending in questions, and we'll try and get through a couple before we close for today. So I think a good starting point is, what would you say, or what's the research behind the map? Obviously, you've spoken about quite a bit during the webinar.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's something we like to insist on, is that this map is there is nothing new fundamentally there. It's based on existing models, on existing research. If you are interested, I suggest you visit the blog on the crossknowledge.com website, because there are a number of articles there. When you type maturity, you will find them straight away. But yeah, we went back to the usual suspects, I would say, of Maslow, Bloom, and then more recently the capability maturity model for software development, which was inspiration for Josh Berzin and his high impact learning organization research. So we also took into consideration the learning enterprise framework from Danny Johnson, and the research from Towards Maturity were also a good source of insight for us.
Okay, perfect. Next question is, how do you apply this with your clients?
Yes, that's a good question, and the answer cannot be monolithic. It will depend on the clients, and again, the value of such a map, of such an approach is not in the framework itself. It's what you are going to do with that, which is going to create the value. So we have a number of different approaches with client, but each time what we're really trying to do is to create this opportunity for investigation, create this opportunity for a bit of a deeper analysis of, yes, let's take a moment now to think about where we are, and then we are going to elaborate on where we want to get to. I would give one example, maybe to make it a bit more concrete for you and the participants. Is an organization, very large organization. We designed and deployed with them what they call the core skills program, and that was a few years ago now. We injected a lot of efforts and resources into content mapping, into design, in terms of pedagogical engineering behind that. And so everything was localization in terms of accessibility in different languages and stuff like that. But still, the engagement and the impact was remained quite limited. And it's only when, as part of an exercise of looking at all the different questions and going through those different dimensions with the client, we realized that in terms of learner marketing and communication, there was something missing there. And then we started elaborating with them some more tactical plans on okay, what is possible? Who are the stakeholders internally where we can go and collaborate with your internal com or your talent or other academies in the organization? And in 6 months' time, we've seen like a change of situation, like quite radical, when those core skills suddenly became the most popular programs on the platform for that organization. So that's one example.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that example with us. And I guess kind of like a follow-on question to that is, any kind of like concrete outcomes?
Yeah, there are two. I think there are different approaches to it, but for me, one organization where I think this type of approach has really delivered on not only outcomes in terms of being able to deploy a new type of learning experience, to modernize the learning. It was in a financial organization. So let's say the previous experience was quite poor. So in terms of experience, it has been improved. But the most important part there was that we collaborated, partnered with the client to create this business academy model, this capability academy model, taking an iterative approach, creating an MVP of an academy, collaborating directly with the business, but not only with the intention and the goal to deploy that and then look at something else. It was really done with the intention to scale up the process And so in terms of operating model, in terms of governance, there was a lot of effort injected from the very beginning to make sure that once that academy was online, there was a queue there at the door of 6 or 7 business leaders knocking on the door saying, I want one too. And the main outcome here was that actually with the client, we were able to do it. And so in a 20 months time, how many academies have been deployed was quite impressive, with control of the cost, with the same quality, and following the same canvas, the same playbook, so that it can remain consistent, aligned, and manageable in the longer run. So yeah, I think if there is one outcome that I can share with you today is that one, because it covers all the different dimensions of this framework, and really has brought the organization to, in some of the dimension, that third cycle of maturity.
Okay, well, thank you for answering those questions for us. And again, thank you everyone that sent in questions for us today. Just wanted to say a thank you to all of our attendees listening in, and of course a special thank you to Cedric at CrossKnowledge for sharing these insights with us today. A recording of the webinar will be sent out in due course, but of course if you do have any further questions or information, please do reach out to CrossKnowledge directly. And I just wanted to wish you all a great afternoon, stay safe, and we do look forward to welcoming you back to additional webinars in future. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.